Welcome back to another SuperCoach video with me, JD. You're joining me for the round 22 review. I think we've got two left now, round 23 and round 24. And, it has come unlocked. I haven't hit the front page yet. We're going to do that together at the moment to see exactly how bad the rank drop is, because this week was an absolute shocker. You can see, traded in Libba for Dacos. He 20 concussed. That's, could have taken a Roberts 34. Even Fletcher's 21 would have been an upgrade on Libba's score there. We had, Mini Helmet with the 51. That's got to be one of the worst trades of the year. Pretty easily. Dunkley held him, like a lot of people did, 62. So getting punished for holding him. DC with the 67 after a few good scores. That is an absolute shocker. Stewart 69. Oh boy. Cog 70. The hits keep on coming. He was nowhere in that game. So yeah, so absolute stinkers. But before we get into that, I just wanted to share with you something that we've been doing in the Discord, but I know many viewers haven't been in the Discord. So I'm going to put this link below, but it's to generate your very own SuperCoach bingo card. So you click the link, you hit generate. It is unique to you. There are lots of spots that randomize them, so you'll get your own new card. And the idea is that you try and see what is the earliest round where all these conditions would be true for your team. And then just let me know below what was like the earliest round bingo you were able to get. So, for example, Marcus Bonampelionis, that was round one, so that would be considered round one. But I didn't get a donut until like quite late. So, maybe buys, I had my first donut in that last round. Did I have one then? I might not have had a donut this year. So this line could be dead for me. But then if I look up, 0 trades left. That was this week. So this is probably quite late. So I'd probably have to move on and look for something else in this one. But that's the idea. You go through and fill it out and see when you were able to score bingo. So I'm yet to fill out and do mine. But yeah, click the link below if you're into that kind of type of thing. Let me know what round you got. Let's go and click home and see how far the rank dropped this week. I'm assuming it's going to be pretty bad. Captain Bont at least wasn't too bad, 115. I don't think anyone was really looking at either English or Marshall. Maybe some looked at Butters. So at least the captaincy, I didn't really screw up this week, which is nice. Sarong would have been a popular option for those that had him, and he was very disappointing. I brought him in fantasy and captained him this week. And for those that have been asking, I'm 29th in that. So I'm going to have another good year in fantasy. Another hat in that format. Second year playing, hat in both years. And look, SuperCoach is going to be top 1,000 finished. I think it's probably impossible for me to stuff that up, even with Libba being covered by rookies next week. But yeah, disappointing end to the year, even though if you told me at the start, you another top 100 finish in fantasy, get the socks or whatever in SuperCoach, I would have signed up for that. But yeah, just the way it finished, disappointing. 92 spots, so not as bad as I would have thought, but to be outside the top 200 now, just disappointing. This year could have been a top 100. Sad. So 22-4-2, this is a poor score. Yep, big rank drop, deserved. And yeah, I'm clearly at least one trade too short this year, where I had too many last year, too short this year, because trading on Libba this week to someone that would have been playing would have made a lot of sense. But, it's also a bit unlucky. I was 2K short of trading him to Sicily. That was my preferred target. I could have gone Luke Jackson or Newman or any of the other targets I was talking about, but went Libba. I could have even gone, Clary? Did I have enough money for Clary? That would have been better. Eesh. Sad. Very sad. Okay. Quickly, let's touch on a couple of things. There's not a lot to discuss. For people that have trades, you're probably moving on Libba. The other concern this week was Doherty, who got subbed out in the fourth quarter, early to mid fourth quarter in that game. It was a tactical sub, which was surprising. Apparently, he copped a corked calf, and he is likely to be okay to play this week, but it all depends on how he pulls up. I know it's easy for them to say he's likely to play, but it actually doesn't mean he's guaranteed. So we'll just see how that goes this week. If he doesn't get up, then I am into spot a bother, unless we finally get Melick and the Pelicans return, and even then I could be getting another 20 off that. But yeah, that was sad. Daniel, this roll sucks. Day was great again. Sinclair was good. Dawson was good, and Stewart was very disappointing, to be honest. Against the Pies. It's a good matchup. And he he went 18 on them, I think, earlier in the year when he got injured. And then, to back up with 69. Oh, mids. Petrarca was unlucky not to be on 140, I would say, because I believe he kicked that goal in the fourth. Posted that on Twitter, and then I've been getting mentions from some of the small tangent here. Supercoach and fantasy Twitter, for the most part, is pretty good. There are, of course, some absolute nuffs and some that come on and abuse people and all that type of stuff. And I expect it. I've done stuff before YouTube that exposed me to this type of stuff, and I'm like used to the abuse. I can take it and cop it. And in general, the Supercoach and fantasy communities are pretty good. I find they're pretty friendly. And while you always have some that are like bad, it's a minority. As soon as you venture out into actual football Twitter and especially start touching on teams and especially the big clubs, so like Essendon, Carlton, Collingwood, there's definitely some in the North fan base and a few others as well. But it just gets so toxic so quickly where if you have an opinion or a take that doesn't favor their club, you just get abused for it. And it is brutal. If one of your tweets all of a sudden ends up in main footy social media and it goes against the fan base, geez, you hear about it. It is like wild, and I'm glad that I don't get exposed to that, including Essendon stuff. That often I just kind of stick to the Supercoach and fantasy stuff because it's just so bad. Anyway, saying that Petrarca non-goal probably should have been reviewed for longer. I thought that was a pretty uncontroversial opinion because it's game-changing moment. Didn't really look like it was touched. We didn't get to see all the angles, and they reviewed it quick and moved on, like far out. Didn't think that would be as controversial as it is, but for those that aren't on Twitter, you wouldn't have seen that stuff. It's just I've just posted the three angles, and to me, it just looked like I couldn't see a clear touch. I get why within the current rules of the game, it is hard to overturn that because as it stands, unless there's sufficient evidence, they can't overturn it. That's just how it works. But you look at the path of the ball, it doesn't deviate at all. You look at all the angles, there's no clear touch. It's just the threshold for evidence to overturn an umpire's call in those situations seems like crazy high to me. Anyway, it all falls under the bigger argument, which every fan I think's been saying for like the last 2-3 years, which is if you're going to do this goal review stuff, you actually need to have better technology and equipment so you can properly review it. And AFL has failed on that, and it's just another example where, boy, I would really love to know what actually happened. Instead, we're all just guessing. So anyway, a very long way of saying Petrarca was very good in that game again. It's just the role is bad. He's well outperforming that role. I wouldn't expect any other player to do it ever again. I mean, Dusty's probably the only other person I can think of that has done it consistently. Oliver coming back into the side didn't really seem to affect him negatively from a scoring perspective, but to me it does seem like they need him less in the midfield at the moment. But it is going to be interesting once Bailey Fritsch returns, who, whether they can move Petrarca out of there a little bit more and whether it negatively affects Petrarca because they will have other targets to go to in the forward 50 that aren't him. So bit of a watch for the last couple of games. But yeah, Oliver coming back didn't seem to affect him too much in this one. Merritt was tagged for pretty much all this game, which was definitely a risk given that North had to tag him for the first three quarters in the first game after he destroyed him in the first quarter. Laird was surprisingly good. I mean, it's good to get both good scores out of both Laird and Dawson because for me, like Crouch is definitely negatively affecting them. And I thought there was a chance that they bring in Keys as well to tag Neil, which would hurt them, but didn't seem to happen. And that was nice because it meant that Neil didn't drop an absolute egg, but it still wasn't a great score. Libby, we touched on, he's concussed, so we'll definitely miss next week. And that is just a double shame because part of the reason I brought him in was he had West Coast this week. It should be a slam dunk, maybe big 130, 140 score. So it's not like he's missing a tough fixture, this one. So to miss like 80 points on field and then another big score, like, oh, that hurts. Brayshaw, I thought, was going to get tagged, and O'Neill was definitely at him at certain points, at certain stoppages. But like West Coast just haven't been tagging. So yeah, there's some defensive pressure, but it is whatever. Yeah, Cogs looked lost. He's been bad with Green back in the side, so I don't expect much out of him in the last couple of games. Might beat up on Essendon this week. We'll see. Roberts came back, scored, I think, like 7 points in the first half, and then was able to salvage a little bit of a score with a goal in the second half. And that was huge for many people because I know they were using him for cover this week. English and Marshall were good. Gorn, scoring dropped off a little bit with Grundy back on the side as expected. Grundy, I didn't think was bad, but definitely wasn't amazing. So I do wonder if there's a chance he gets dropped for Tom McDonald this week. We'll wait and see. But I think Gorn owners are still in the minority. And then Briggs, who many faded English for. What did he end up scoring? I thought he played all right. 115. He had a nice matchup. So just the 115 is a little bit disappointing, but I mean, he's had 3 tons in a row now, which is good after he had a little bit of a dull patch. He's still been outstanding for where he's at in his career. And then Essendon this week, who have been a trickier matchup, but Phillips retired, so if it's Brian solo ruck, he should be fine. If Draper's back and it's Draper and Brian, that's going to be a little bit tougher. In the forward line, I mean, yeah, Goulden got tagged for that game and still pumped out a 90. He has been outstanding this year, especially for the price we played. Butters, yeah, good once again. And him alongside Rosie, they absolutely dominated today. Interestingly enough, Wines had the most CBAs he's had in that midfield for about a month. So I wonder if that was just them resting him, getting ready for finals, and then putting him back in once his body's right. They definitely managed him throughout the year. I don't think it'll affect Butters and Rosie too much. I still expected the CBAs to stay high. But with this spot that they're in, which I think is top 4 guaranteed, I wouldn't be surprised if they start to look to rest people in the next couple of weeks. We'll see what happens. And then, yeah, DC mentioned, and then Taranto without Hopper, we expected to see a better score, and we somewhat did. They've got the North matchup this week, so potentially a nice score from him. For those that have LDU who did well this week, or Sheasel, I'd expect them to be good options this week. Maybe not for the VC, though. Oh, I just saw Daniel's under 400k. That's nuts. Oh, it's so bad. All right, so I think that's the quick look at everything. Vice captain, captain this week. Let's have a quick talk about that. And to be honest, surveying this, there's not a ton that I love. Taranto's form hasn't been good enough to, I think, warrant the VC against North. Dunkley's form definitely hasn't been good enough to warrant it against Collingwood. Neil is the one that I guess you could potentially consider because they don't tag or haven't been tagging, and Collingwood have been more vulnerable than what they have been. But it is Brisbane away, even though it's not at the G, it's at Marvel. But yeah, so like maybe a little bit of a soft look at Neil. Not enamored by that. Gold Coast Carlton, no one excites me in there. Took's been tagging. GWS Essendon. Merritt's history against them, I think, has been a bit up and down because I believe he was tagged in at least one of these games. I think it might have been this 2022 game. Did all right against them earlier this year. So yeah, he's another one that you could look at, but he's been getting attention left, right, and center. Season on the line, I guess, when it comes to finals with both of them. So that should be a contested game where probably Essendon doesn't turn up for the first quarter and gets blown out. But yeah, I wouldn't touch Cogs, though, in that one. If you had Tom Green still, for whatever reason, I think you could potentially look at him. Yeah, that's probably about it. Maybe you could look at Parrish. St Kilda Geelong. So I guess Stewart should be interesting here just because Saints give up a lot of points to defenders. I guess this is one of those weeks where you could look at the Saints. Now, with that said, he scored 48 points on them last year, and that's because they used a forward tag from... it was either Owens or Windhager. It was one of the two, and I wouldn't be surprised if they looked at that because Ross has softened his stance a little bit on tagging. So we will see, but yeah, Stewart is potentially a vice captain option. It's late, it's a Saturday night VC, but I think that's one that we could look at and one that I will look at. Probably wouldn't look at Sinclair or Steele or anyone else from that game. And then at the same time, you've got Swans, Crows, and maybe, let's have a look at the history of Laird against them. 140, 120 in his last two. Those are at least good ones, and they're both at the SCG. Swans have been restrictive this year, I will say that. So, at the best, they're decent. So, I mean, if they're going to tag someone once again, I think you'd probably still put Rowbottom. You'd put him to Dawson. Or maybe you could VC Laird. Okay, I don't mind that. He's been up and down, so I wouldn't captain him, but I could see a vice captain. And then Swan side, I don't think there's anyone to consider. And then we jump into the Sunday games. So you've got The Dogs against West Coast straight up. And I think, English and Bont are both ones you could look at here. So English last time we played him was a 160. They've got BJ Williams running around. Bont only went 96 in the last time, but then two big scores before that. And I have a feeling that if they extend this history, there's another big score before that as well. So Bont and English, I think, are both good captain or vice captain options, and I could potentially see myself trying to hold out and just VC one of them. D's play the Hawks at 320, and if you wanted to vice captain one of Bont or English, the problem is that then it's like a three-quarter time score or a half-time. Three-quarter time score or a half-time score you have to take before that game starts. And Petrarca, I don't really trust as a captain, and probably Clary in the same boat as well, just because there's I think, a reasonable chance that Finn goes to one of those two. Thinking out loud, if you put Finn on Petrarca on the forward line, Petrarca is already dangerous enough as a forward, so I just don't think there's much in there. So potentially it's Oliver that they put him to. And Petrarca might be okay, but I still wouldn't captain him. Hawks have been in great form. And then Sicily from that game, I guess you could look at as a C option. Is there a risk of a tag? Maybe. Melbourne don't have a lot going on that forward line, so I wouldn't mind forgoing our structure to stop Sicily if I'm Simon Goodwin, but who knows what they would do. And then the last game of the round is Freo Port at Optus. And to be honest, maybe you are looking at a Butters or a Goulden captain. Butters' last two against them are not good, but that was when he's probably playing forward, hasn't played them in a while, and Rosie's last score against them have not been good either. Surely that has to be injury affected, that one. So I think I'm probably going to captain English, and I'll probably vice Tom Stewart or something like that. English is the one that I think I prefer over Bont, just because the soft ruck matchup. But we'll see. I mean, it could be Laird. At least he's got the ceiling. Unless that's like Captain Butters. I don't think I'll do that. But yeah, it's not the easiest week for captain and vice captain, I must say, especially with so many of the premiums just being poor. But those are kind of my thoughts out loud as we go through it. I'm hoping that I get Melican back this week. Hope Doherty's playing. Hopefully Liver's just one for the concussion. At least he plays round 24, which, if it's a win and in type situation for him against the Cats, he's going to have to play. But yeah, that's sucky. Okay, well, if you're playing bingo, let me know how your bingo card goes. Otherwise, you've got questions about trades, captains, whatever this week, let me know. Otherwise, I will see you in the next one. Peace.